Hello and welcome once again to The Blueprint. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, with new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. If you're on YouTube, hit the bell, be notified when new content is made available. The Liberal leadership race is in full swing. Parliament's still prorogued. What else is new? Thanks, Justin Trudeau. To talk about this and much, much more, we bring on Eric Duncan from Eastern Ontario. Thanks for joining us. Stormont, Glengarry, Dundas, South Glengarry.
You got to tell a big like Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes. It's a great big long. With Eastern Ontario's got these long riding names, but we're representing here today.
Yes, I think I always get your riding wrong, so I think I would continue the tradition today. Why change?
Exactly.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. There's lots going on. 2025 has been an interesting year in politics, and we're 3 weeks in. So.
Oh my goodness, yes, the tariffs threat is still looming. It's been pushed back a bit. Our last show, it was filmed before the inauguration. Got a bit of a reprieve here, but just a terrible time for Parliament to be out of session. Absolutely terrible. And the Liberals not focused on anything happening around the world, just on themselves.
Agreed, and this is going to be going on for another 2 months. Parliament's not back at a time. If we've ever needed Parliament to sit, to go on and have an emergency response to what's going on in the United States, the threat of tariffs going on, where we need leadership. We have a lame duck prime minister, and we have a paralyzed or a shut down Parliament in this case. We've been shut down for months and paralyzed in the sense that the Liberals are hiding from their Green Slush Fund accountability and documents to the RCMP. And now we're prorogued at a time when we're supposed to be back this week. And Canadians are looking where it's another 2 months for the Liberals to sort their chaos and mess out. And we just want an election. Canadians should have their say now. It might be months yet before we have that. And I just think right now Donald Trump looks at Justin Trudeau, looks at the Liberal Party, and is just laughing right now. And that's very dangerous for our economy and for jobs in the country.
Absolutely. We saw how fast the Trump administration is moving on tariffs and threats to other countries. And Canada is not spared from this. Our auto industry is in deep trouble if he moves forward with that.
Oh, agreed. Very worrisome on that front. And again, not having the leadership. We have premiers that are stepping up, meeting and trying to provide, going down to Washington, D.C. But again, we have ministers, we have Liberal MPs that are completely distracted. They're focused on themselves, and their leadership race is starting to bicker back and forth. And at a time when we need to be, again, just completely focused on the Canada-U.S. relationship, it's completely absent and devoid of all of that. So we need to bring, Pierre Poilievre came out very clear, let's recall Parliament back now. Let's start to address these issues now. Frank, let's have an election now so Canadians can have their say. A government can get a mandate, and we can restore common sense among many things. But again, restore some leadership here to go toe-to-toe and be ready to retaliate against anything that Donald Trump and the United States decide to do. We need to be prepared. We need to be organized. And I just think, frankly, we need a prime minister that has the credibility and the trust of Canadians, and that is far from the situation right now.
Yeah, there's been a number of polls lately. The majority of Canadians believe we need an election. The majority think that we are going in the wrong direction. I think it's time, way past time, for an election. And you know what? With the new administration in the United States, and if it does become a majority parliament, that gives that 4 years to work with that administration to work out the challenges ahead.
A mandate. Yeah. A mandate to go ahead and how we're going to confront the challenge of the U.S., among many other things. This is the thing, too, of where Donald Trump's election the last couple of months has obviously put this on the front burner. But think as well, Jamie, all the other issues we're still dealing with domestically, our housing mess, our broken immigration system, our still cost of living, cost of food, 2 million people using a food bank every month. We've got domestic challenges that have happened because of Justin Trudeau and all these Liberal MPs and ministers the last 9 years. Now we have this other threat, and here we are 2 months yet before the House comes back, before we could actually even have a non-confidence vote or even give the idea of having an election, but a mandate, a fresh mandate on all the issues we've got. I'm very confident of our position. Pierre, as our leader, has been doing fantastic work and being very clear on what we would do as a common sense conservative government. But even if you don't want an election right now, why anybody would not want that? If you You should be wanting to get a mandate from Canadians to go and combat the many problems the country's faced.
So we do have many problems. Plus, what, $62 billion in the hole on the credit card this year? Last year, sorry. That is unbelievable. All right, so one of the people in the leadership race is, of course, Karina Gould. She's the House Leader. She's responsible for the agenda of the government and largely responsible in part, I shouldn't say largely, in part responsible for this backlog, the rain slush fund, the presentation of documents issue that we were dealing with to try to get to the bottom of that scandal. She's running for leadership, and she just feels really compassionate and really just energized to get to the bottom of what just happened the last 9 years. Let's cue up cut one, and this is Karina Gould, the House Leader. Really wants to get a hold of the person responsible. Play cut one.
Canadians don't trust the Liberal Party of Canada right now. And I think that's because over the past couple of years in particular, we've gotten further away from the grassroots and talking about the things that Canadians care about.
So what don't they trust about the Liberal Party, and how would you correct that?
Well, look, whether it's with regards to housing or the cost of groceries, they're saying things are expensive for us right now. And we need help to make ends meet, and we need leaders who are focused on those really, like things that matter to us, like our pocketbook issues and making sure that we're there.
Sounds like our message. And she defended the liberal narrative all the way through.
The gall that she has. And I said, watching that clip, you'd think that the Liberal Party right now is in third place or in the corner of the House of Commons with a couple dozen MPs, and they're just trying to find out whose problem it was for the last 9 years that created all of this. They're trying to reinvent themselves and talk about, in Karina Gould, as the government House Leader, Canadians not trusting them. Yeah. She's the one that is paralyzed Parliament before it was shut down by Justin Trudeau. She was the one that paralyzed Parliament for months as the government House Leader because they refused to turn over all the documents about the $400 million green slush fund. So you're talking about Canadians not trusting the Liberals. She is one of the most complicit in this. And it's not just been Justin Trudeau. It has been every leadership contender that is running in this race, every Liberal MP and minister. They've been at the cabinet table. They've been in the caucus room. They're the ones that have been voting for all these, voting confidence, voting for the budgets, and propping the Prime Minister up, even as he got more and more and more unpopular. So I think the confidence she had to try to give that answer, she's one of the ones, the main factors that Canadians don't trust the Liberals. And you can change the leader out, but Justin Trudeau and the record of the last 9 years, that's going to be on the ballot. And so laughable, this approach they're trying to take.
It is incredible. And I said it many times before on different Liberals, the way they talk. There is absolutely no discomfort. You see, like there's no issues. They like when people go shopping, they look at their bill like they're the problem, not the government, right? And she's just like, cost of living's out of control, but we've told them that for I don't know how many years now.
And as if there was something they could have done about it for the last 9 years or not done in a lot of cases. The carbon tax, their housing plan that's been an absolute disaster and doubled everything in housing costs. Yeah. Our immigration system that they broke, and they've admitted they've even started they just backtrack. And at what point do you completely lose credibility? It is gone. At what point do you lose, any sort of dignity in yourself that way of going out? They've backtracked on everything and now going out and just making that blanket statement that they don't trust. They're even admitting now what Canadians have known. They don't trust the Liberals. I don't think a leadership race is going to change this because, again, every person running is tied very closely to Trudeau, and they're the ones that have backed up all these plans that have got us in the mess that we're in.
Yeah, it's the same bus, same route, same company. They're just changing the driver.
Exactly.
So the two top ones, I guess, if you can call it that, is Chrystia Freeland. Of course, she said she believes the Prime Minister should be an MP. The quick screenshot there. She looks like she is not garnering the support that she thought she would. There's a number of her cabinet colleagues who are going towards Mark Carney.
Yeah, well, and
Mr. Outsider.
The opposite of an outsider, just behind the scenes advising, again, Trudeau and the $62 billion deficit we've got. It was Chrystia Freeland had no problem with any of this until Justin Trudeau told her he was going to fire her the following week. So again, they had a guardrail of $40 billion, which is an excessive deficit for Canada to have as it was. That was going to be the guardrail. They blew right past it at $62 billion. And the list goes on. The capital gains tax hike they're putting on small businesses and home builders and doctors, everybody, there's going to be paying this ripple effect of another tax increase. trying to backtrack on that. Now, the carbon tax, you're not sure where they all stand, but you don't trust any of them. This is all posturing for people's votes in a leadership race and then an election at some point this year, hopefully this spring or as soon as possible. But again, the lack of conviction that Chrystia Freeland is having, let's make it very clear. If Justin Trudeau didn't call her on Zoom on that Friday and told her he was going to fire her for Mark Carney.
Yep.
So Mark Carney had agreed to become the finance minister. He agreed with all these economic plans and the deficit and everything. This outsider, Mark Carney, the only reason that she quit and all of a sudden is backtracking and changing her position is because she was going to get fired. So I think Canadians don't buy this. And again, it speaks to the desperation the Liberals have and their lack of conviction on things. Now, they're trying to reverse course. They're trying to pretend there's something they're not. And I think, as opposed to helping them, I think Canadians just shake their head and say, this is a party that's just falling apart, trying to run away from Justin Trudeau. But as we've been saying, they're just like Justin.
Oh, absolutely.
And Chrystia Freeland is no different.
Well, Freeland's now backtracking on the carbon tax. I guess they all are.
Yep.
But now we have Freeland talking about the changes she wants to make back on the capital gains tax increases. Like, this is something that was her champion. How many times did she stand in the House of Commons, defend it to her last breath, and said it's going to be great, we're taxing the wealthy, or whatever her lines were, and we said steadfast that this is going to damage the economy and our overall competitiveness.
And one of the most arrogant and I think undemocratic things about all of this was Chrystia Freeland was finance minister only up until a few weeks ago. CRA, despite, and this is the one thing for Canadians to know, this never passed in legislation. The Liberals were so disorganized in chaos about everything, going back over several months now. It's nearly been a year since they announced this plan for the capital gains tax hike, and they never passed or tabled any legislation that got through. So now what Freeland's trying to do is saying, oh, I'm against it. But it was officials at CRA, even though the bill never passed Parliament, never became law, they're still going ahead and got the Liberal directive to enforce it and start taking those increased tax hikes from Canadians. So they didn't even pass it. They couldn't even be organized. They're forcing and demanding that CRA collect this tax hike from Canadians. And now she's going out and saying she opposes the whole thing. It's a farce. The issues just go on and on and on. But the same thing at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to get away from their record of propping Trudeau up. This is just another example. Nobody buys it.
And it's really difficult for Canadians who have to sit back and take this day in and day out. Because when a government's desperate, they make really desperate decisions. And we're seeing that.
And I call it pendulum politics now. They're swinging all over the place, trying to run away and get attention or to try to drive attention away from what we've been saying is, look, I love the analogy about the bus driver, right? It's the same bus, same route, different driver. And this is the same. It's the same group of Liberal MPs, the same group of Liberal ministers. They've all been there every time. It's been Carney being the key economic advisor to Trudeau. He did it through the Liberal Party of Canada, so he didn't have to do all these ethics disclosures and all these conflicts of interests that he has, but going and giving all this advice and now pretending that they're a bunch of outsiders and they're all brand new. They're running as if they're the third place party and they have had nothing to do with the last 9 years. It's just ridiculous. And so it's going to be weeks and weeks more of this chaos and drama and backtracking that they have, all while we lack the leadership we need to confront the problems that we've got.
Well, let's bring in the outsider here. Cue up cut two. Mr. Carbon Tax Carney, the outsider. He's coming in a champion for the little guy, this guy. Play cut two.
You say you're the outsider, but it looks like the party establishment is lining up behind you.
No, c'est une question it's the issue of deputies, elected members, ministers, others, Liberals across the country who are making a choice and are making a choice about the importance of the economy, the importance of coming together, building together. That's a free choice. This is the Liberal Party. We believe in freedom.
Believe in freedom. Yeah, okay.
Bunch of Liberal word salad that means nothing, virtue signaling all over. And again, he's going to make a natural Liberal leadership contender.
He's going to be beautiful. He can lie with the best of them.
And he never answer a question.
Exactly.
Just a bunch of word salad and virtue signaling, and you leave there and saying, what did he even mean?
Well, the reporter, Bob Fife, was correct when he asked the question. You're claiming to be the outsider, but yet it looks like the establishment of the party, the Prime Minister's office, his top staff, the machinery in general, are all lining up behind the outsider, Mr. Carbon Tax.
The best part of that clip was, as you see the people in the background, They're all Liberal ministers and MPs that supported Justin Trudeau, voted with him in caucus, did all these disastrous plans. They're the ones trying to shield him from answering questions in the media and get him into this event in downtown Ottawa to meet a bunch of Liberal MPs and Liberal staff that, again, have been all part in propping up Trudeau the last 9 years. So the irony of that, trying to convince Canadians he's an outsider. I'm not one to give advice and try to understand where they come from, but of all the arguments Mark Carney can make, he is far from an outsider, and that's just the frank reality. It's carbon tax Carney, because he, again, have the nickname and we connect people. Whenever you're the economic advisor, that means you're giving the advice on the $62 billion deficit, on quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, and now only when a vote is upcoming in a leadership race and then in a general election that's coming sooner rather than later, they're trying to run away and pretend the last couple of years. So you can't claim and brag to be an economic advisor, to be an outsider, and not have anything to do with these plans. So again, the credibility right off the bat of the contenders, Mark Carney, no different. He's been very close to Trudeau, and he's been very associated. He's had no problems with any of the plans until he had to talk publicly about them.
Well, exactly. And I think what their messaging is because he's an outsider, they're hoping to tap into those voters that might not pay attention, right? They have lives, they have better things to do than play politics 24/7, right? And so there's a large swath of people that don't know who Mark Carney is, probably don't care until really now. So if they hear he's an outsider and really don't know much about him, I think that's their winning bet. But meanwhile, he's the most elitist individual in that group.
Agree, 100%. And this is the thing, too, what we have to do. We've got to call it out, and that's what we've been doing, to say, no, he is not an outsider, and accurately calling him out for what he is. He's an insider. He's an Ottawa elite that has been doing all this behind the scene, but advising Justin Trudeau, and he's bragged about it. There's been numerous examples. He's been bragging about the carbon tax, and that's why we give the name Carbon Tax Carney, is because we have to remind people. He's going out now, and look at this. He's got the radical environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault, one of the most unpopular elected officials in the entire country, endorsing Mark Carney. He's been the king of the carbon tax himself, and now saying, well, no, we don't support the carbon tax, but we're going to replace it, but we're not going to tell you what it is yet. All this to be said is, Mark Carney has been planning a leadership run for years in the back rooms of Ottawa, in Toronto, and Bay Street. Now all of a sudden he comes out and he doesn't have a plan. That is just code for we're going to lie all the way up until the election and hope for the best. And then after the election, if they got back in, heaven forbid, they'd go in, they'd say, oh, now Guilbeault's going to come back and say, well, we've got to do this. And they broke their promise before, Jamie. Think about it. Back in 2019, when the carbon tax first came in, the Liberals promised it was only going to be $50 a ton, and Canadians couldn't afford any tax increases beyond that. Well, they went and did it over $170 a ton, and that's part of this whole plan of quadrupling it, the carbon tax, to 61 cents a litre. They broke their promise after the election, and Canadians were, tricked and duped into doing it. I think, again, in 2015, 2019, 2021, again, you can change the leaders, but Canadians aren't going to trust. They're going to flip-flop again right after the election if they get back in.
Well, let's cue up cut 3. This, in normal circumstances, would be the kiss of death for many leadership contestants.
Yeah.
Liberals, they work under a different set of rules and different set of parameters here. So this is the environment minister, like you said, probably the most radical on that front bench, giving his endorsement to Mr. Outsider Carbon Tax Carney. Play cut 3.
I'm here to tell you today that I will be offering my support to Mark Carney.
The fact that you're not very popular in Western Canada, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan, how is your support going to benefit Mr. Carney in this race?
I think I'm probably popular in parts of the country, and I'm popular in others. I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that question. I'm going to do everything I can and help in any way I can to make sure that Mark Carney is the next leader of the Liberal Party.
Probably my least favorite minister. Just saying.
I can answer that question. He is not popular anywhere in the country.
Yeah, I don't think so. He was the guy who was going to quit cabinet if there were any more carve-outs to the carbon tax. So you have Mark Carney saying, well, we'll have to rethink this. And he is, Stephen Guilbeault is offering his endorsement to the outsider. So what do they have up their sleeve? So you're right. They are either lying or whatever they're coming up with is worse, because otherwise he wouldn't get that endorsement.
Talk about a hidden agenda.
Right.
It is
There,
right
right
very
there.
clearly. Right. Why would Guilbeault sign on to a candidate that says he's going to get rid of the carbon tax? And again, Mark Carney has been touting the carbon tax and actually saying it's not high enough and not going up fast enough. And now all of a sudden saying they're going to get rid of it and come up with something new, but they're not going to say what it is and how they're going to do it. The NDP have been playing the exact same thing. Jagmeet Singh knows how unpopular and failed the carbon tax is. So several months ago said, yep, we don't support the carbon tax anymore, but we're going to take the time and figure out a new plan. It's been several months, and we've heard radio silence from the NDP on their position on this. But this is all, we've seen this textbook before. This is what Liberals do. They just go and they MacGyver themselves and they try to trick Canadians just to get through the election period. And then afterwards go and say, oh, well, you know, we've got to do this or we didn't mean it. And they backtrack. They've done that several times in the carbon tax. They've done it, no more tax hikes, the capital gains. And they say only the rich will pay. It is absolutely not the truth. It is doctors, it is home builders, it is small business owners, all getting nailed with this. And they try to seek forgiveness afterwards. So I look at Guilbeault, you know, you're right, the most radical minister. He was arrested climbing the CN Tower back in the day. And again, he was actually on record whenever they had this whole $170 a ton metric that they broke their promise on and put it. When it went, their whole plan to quadruple the carbon tax from the current rates to 61 cents a litre. Guilbeault said he wasn't even sure if he was to be done at that. Yeah. He was open to increasing it and jacking up the carbon tax even more after that. So you're right. What did Mark Carney promise Stephen Guilbeault to get his endorsement in the leadership race? And the fact that he hasn't come up with an alternative yet just tells you everything about the integrity and I think where this race is going. They're trying to run every which way away from their record.
Well, I guess Guilbeault's endorsement of Carney does fit some narrative, right? Like, Carney is okay with pipelines as long as they're not built in Canada.
Yep.
And Carney moved his company from Ontario into New York City, you know, taking those jobs with it, right? And then he wants to profess he is the savior of this country.
Yeah, and all while trying to get more money. So they need, in the budget, in the fall economic statement, that the chaos that got tabled because Freeland had quit and the chaos of that day, he's got his hand out trying to get handouts for his company from the federal government as well. So again, between the hypocrisy is outstanding. You know, I give them an A for all of that, where they can go out so confidently and just make it look so smug. But at the end of the day, they're just all over the map on their positions. And that's where I just say, get this race over with. Let Canadians have a say right now. Get Parliament back. Let Canadians have. Nothing's going to change over the 2 months. They're going to backtrack and they're going to, you know, just try to reverse this whole perception. But again, very clear. The next election, Justin Trudeau will be on the ballot because the record of the last 9 years is going to be on there. And Canadians cannot be fooled, and they won't be fooled. We're going to make sure that they know about the positions, the mess that we're in. And again, I think caught flat-footed when it comes to the issues in the U.S. and tariffs and the response of Donald Trump. We were caught completely flat-footed. And it's going to cost, and sadly, worry many Canadians about their jobs and some of the key industries we have in this country.
Well, hopefully, Jagmeet Singh will keep his word. We'll vote down the government at the earliest opportunity, and we'll be into an election. But hey, as the airing of the show, that is Jagmeet Singh's position. Who knows if that's going to change 3 minutes from now?
Exactly. Well, we'll see what it brings. Weeks in eternity in politics, and who knows, between the Liberals and NDP, who knows these days?
All right, we're pretty much out of time. As you know, the guests get the last word. The floor is yours.
Well, again, this week we were supposed to be back in Parliament. Committees were supposed to be back. Question period supposed to be back. And here we are shuttered. Shut out for the next 2 months at a time that we need it the most. So again, I support the call. We should have Parliament back now at a time when the House should be sitting, at a time when we should be getting a plan and showing leadership. I think it's time for a carbon tax election, get the House back, and I think have a common sense Prime Minister in Pierre Poilievre that we can start to address. Like I said before, confronting this major emergency situation we have with the United States and President Donald Trump, but also starting to address the many challenges we've been talking about for 2 years, and now Liberal leadership contenders agreeing with us, axing the tax, building the homes, fixing the budget, and stopping the crime. There's a lot we have to do. Let's get Canadians to have their say. Let's get a new mandate. Let's get to work.
Eric Duncan, the Member of Parliament for Stormont. Dundas, South, Glengarry, we appreciate your time. We thank you for yours. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. If you want Pierre Poilievre to be the next Prime Minister, we need to get him elected. We need to get this message out, so please do so. Hit the bell on YouTube. Be notified when new content is made available. And, of course, you can download it on your favorite CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify platforms. Your choice is yours. New content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, remember, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.